What's up, wall fans, common sensors, social media world? Welcome to the video feed for episode 31 of Common Sense Sundays. That's right, this is our first official show of 2021 after our little 2-week holiday break. We take that every year. It's a thing we do, a 2-week holiday break. So no surprises there. However, lots of things have happened in that 2 weeks. And we're obviously going to unpack a lot of that. And I apologize in advance for how much of this show is going to be dedicated to me ranting. Obviously, because it's going to be needed. So just in advance, know that that's going to happen. And I'm going to mention it as we kick off the actual podcast. But if your kids are around and you're watching this, this is a good time to turn it off because it's only going to go off the rails from here. Off the rails in a good way, hopefully. But we're absolutely setting the record for F-bombs today. I'm going to warn everyone on that. That is happening. I'm sure of it. The over-under is like 20, and we're going to go over. We're going to go over. So if you're a betting individual, take the over on the F-bombs this particular week. And, of course, we're going to talk about some positive news and all that kind of good stuff. So all that being said, because we're probably going to go way over on time this week, let's get into episode 31.
Who want to do go tell it to the wall? Tell it to the wall. Go tell it to the wall. Tell it to the wall.
All right, wall fans, common sensors, podcast consumers. Welcome to episode 31 of Common Sense Sundays with Go Tell It to the Wall. I'm, of course, your absolute favorite podcast host, the one and only Sean O'Rourke, and welcome, additionally, to our very first show of 2021. We are fresh off of that nice holiday break. I feel rejuvenated, I guess, although having a toddler at home, specifically a 4-year-old, the holidays aren't as relaxing as maybe they were when I was in my 20s and early 30s and just kind of had to go to events and everything. So even despite being stuck at home, quite a lot of energy was exerted over the past 2 weeks because I have a 4-year-old. She's nuts. I mean, in a good way, but just you couldn't contain her on Christmas Eve or Christmas this year. It was very amusing, but it was also like, all right, how many of Santa's cookies did you eat as you were putting them out for Santa? You know, that type of stuff. All right, we're already off the rails here. I warned everyone at the top of the video feed, so if you're only listening, we're going to get into some of that, and you know what we're going to unpack a lot of this week and talk about a lot of this week, and that's pretty obvious. But before we get there, we always kick things off with our social plugs. You can keep up with us during episodes, after episodes, for episodes, whenever you so please, and you can do that in multiple locations. One of those would be facebook.com/GoTellItToTheWall. That's our official Facebook page. Like our page, check back often. You're going to get all kinds of updates through our Facebook page. And, of course, you can also follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Head over to YouTube, search Go Tell It to the Wall, and subscribe. That's where you're going to find all of our video feeds, all of our beer reviews, all kinds of good stuff. To be honest, we have not been putting a lot of stuff up on YouTube. It's been a little crazy. I've been really focusing on the actual podcast itself. So you're not going to see a lot of new stuff. But if you haven't already been subscribed, definitely subscribe. And if you want to see the video feeds, like let's say you're only listening to this right now and you're curious to see my lovely face, you're going to find all of them on YouTube. Of course, a lot of them are also on Facebook, so I shouldn't say that they're only on YouTube, but subscribe to our YouTube channel. And, of course, my own personal Instagram account, which is SoCalSean. That's right, SoCalSean. I haven't been promoting Twitter because I don't use Twitter a lot. Although, to be fair, I was using Twitter quite a bit this past Wednesday. That's when I was watching... and we'll get into a little bit of that, but I was watching C-SPAN on Wednesday, and I don't have cable at home, so I'm watching it through my phone. That was fascinating. My first time in my life, I've seen C-SPAN clips, but first time in my life, I'm listening and watching C-SPAN at like midnight on a Wednesday. That was pretty wild, and you obviously know why, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. But additionally, on Wednesday, I got suspended from Twitter. I got my very first social media suspension of my entire life was this past Wednesday on Twitter. And I got one of those 12-hour suspensions. I guess I don't care because I don't even care to use Twitter. I use it for news. So I was still able to view Twitter. So I don't think I was like fully kicked off of there. I just couldn't post things for like 12 hours. And the reason for my suspension is with all the madness going on Wednesday, I basically went around Twitter and anything I saw people retweeting from horrible politicians and horrible people and orange people who shouldn't be allowed to tweet and no longer are, coincidentally. I just started tweeting fuck you at each and every one of them. And I think after my 15th fuck you to people that deserved to have that reply, Twitter was like, no, you're spreading hate across Twitter. And I'm looking at them going, oh, shit. And this is before the orange one was even suspended. that day. He got one of those suspensions too, and we're going to talk more about that. But like even that one, I'm going like, really? Because I'm just saying fuck you to people that deserve it. It's just unbelievable to me. But that's where we are. I have no respect for Twitter. We don't use Twitter. You can find me on there, but you're not going to see a lot of action on Twitter just because it's a horrible, just muck-raking place. I know people feel that way about Facebook, but you can avoid it on Facebook. You can join groups on Facebook, whereas Twitter, it's coming in your face no matter what you do, no matter who you follow, it's coming at you. Anyway, see, we're already off the rails. We definitely don't need rails this week. That is a definite this week. So, that being said, you can also bookmark our website, which most importantly would be SeanO'RourkeLive.com. That's right, SeanO'RourkeLive.com. It includes links to those social platforms that I've just mentioned, as well as all kinds of other things, including our Patreon campaign. And we could really use a little extra support on Patreon. We are planning to bring in some new equipment to the studio this year, so every little bit is going to help with that. Please, please, please. And then my wife doesn't yell at me for larger credit card bills. Like, we needed it for the studio. That doesn't really happen that often, but I like to joke about it. So please help us out on Patreon. And our merch page is up there. You're going to find a link that will take you directly to our merch website. Pick up some Go Tell It to the Wall common sense merch. This is the first show of 2021, as I mentioned. I gave people a warning at the top of the video feed, and I know I've already let like 3 or 4 of them fly. So here's your warning. I apologize for not giving it before letting those F-bombs fly. But if your children happen to be listening right now, this is definitely not the episode for them to listen to, unless you don't care about them hearing a bunch of F-bombs. But if you're a little bit worried about them repeating those particular words, turn it off. Wait until your kids aren't around and please listen, because we are going off the rails. We are going a little bit scorched earth, and I'm gonna piss off a lot of people this week. I'm back on my piss people off, get people angry at me, and I don't care if we lose listeners, because those aren't the kind of listeners we want. And we went through a lot of this with Kaepernick and a couple other things where people misconstrue my words and, oh, you're anti-American, so it's my favorite thing, because all these people that were calling me anti-American for supporting Colin Kaepernick and him kneeling, just crickets when it comes to the events of Wednesday. So don't listen with your kids. But I will say, as the first show of 2021, I'm not a big fan of New Year's resolutions. I get it. I wouldn't chide someone who creates New Year's resolutions or anything else. But to me, I always just say, if you want to change your life, or do positive things, make something better in your life, you don't have to do that based on an arbitrary calendar date. You just don't. You can do that whenever you want. Now, there's nothing wrong with doing it, but for me personally, that's why I don't really set resolutions. However, I did see on New Year's Day, and a little shout out to BSP. They got a great song, Start New. Like, you can anytime start new. But I did see on New Year's Day this year, like a couple days after, what people have been doing is choosing a word to focus on in the upcoming year, which it can be construed as, a bit of a New Year's resolution, but I think to me that just fits me a little more, so I thought about this, and for me in particular, personally, and as well as for this podcast, the word I'm going to focus on for 2021 is growth. Is growth of my family, my friends, with my personal life, growth of the podcast, just overall. That's something I am personally going to focus on in the new year. So if you're looking for something to kind of help keep you inspired, look for a word to focus on and make that a positive thing. Don't focus on negative words, because that's very easy. I'm one of the most cynical people I know, and so it's very tough for me to remain positive, but that's just something you got to kind of steer that way, and I think this is a great way to remind yourself throughout the year, and just because 2021 ends, you can continue to use that word. Maybe it's just a word you focus on in your daily life. But I thought that was kind of a cool thing, and maybe you think it's silly, but that for me, it's going to be growth in 2021, and hopefully all the growth that we can go through in general. All right, we're not going to go quite scorched earth yet. We're going to get there, but it's gonna ramp up a little bit with the digital trends. That's right. Unless you've been living under a rock, you know that the Orange Menace, Donald Trump, has been basically banned from all social platforms. There's like lists out there, and it's funny. The other day, my wife was like, I didn't know he was banned from Pinterest. And I was like, I think he got banned from Pinterest a little while ago. But now he is officially banned from Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all kinds of other craziness. And obviously, here's the thing. A lot of people are applauding this, but I think the overall sentiment here is good for you. Good for you, but too little too late. We could have done this, years ago, a couple years ago at least. I mean, geez, we could have done it 4 years ago, but even 2 years ago, and think about the damage that could have been avoided by removing him from these platforms. But we didn't do it, and now with like 2 weeks to go in his presidency, oh, you know, we're going to take him off. Come on, give me a fucking break. It's great that you did it, and it hit a point where you had to, for the safety of this country, for the safety of people in this country, you had to ban him. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. But like I said, I got a suspension before he did, and he's inciting riots. I'm simply saying fuck you to people that deserve to have fuck you said to them. Just common sense here. Common sense. And I get it. People are going to, well, it's an algorithm. I get it. But there's also common sense here. Like, let's look at it that way. And it's amazing how many people on Wednesday suddenly found their balls. And excuse my, I don't mean that in an overly masculine way, but a lot of people found their balls on Wednesday, and suddenly they were able to stand up to people, and it's like, really? Really? Now? Let's give some credit to the people that have been standing up for 4 years, 5 years. People have been pointing this out for years. People have been fighting against this for years. Not the dude that stands up in Congress or in the Senate, on Wednesday and says, "Oh, this is terrible. I know I've let this go for almost 4 years, but this is the end of it." And granted, people dying and people trying to circumvent the election process in this country. Yes, that's another level, but we shouldn't even have let it get to that point. Yet here we are. And as far as Parler, so Parler was of course going nuts the other day, and I know not personally really well, but I've seen people that have joined Parler just to like go troll people who are on Parler. And it's funny because I was like, there's nobody is joining Parler for real, but then I see people are like, oh, people are sharing their part. And it's like, really? People that want to join? Okay, that's on you. But now it looks like Parler is basically gone. It was removed everywhere. Over the past couple days, it was removed from the Google App Store, from the Apple App Store. Amazon has removed it from their App Store, and now we've gotten news that Amazon has actually removed it from Amazon Web Services, AWS, if you're familiar with that. As of tonight, Parler will go completely dark. I was curious of this, so I'm hoping the FBI is not going to come knocking on my door. I did go to Parler earlier because I'd seen this, and it is still, if you go on there right now I'm not live, so this could be inaccurate by the time this goes up and you're listening to it, hour and a half or more from now. But as of this afternoon, Sunday, January 10th, it was still up, but I have read and heard that it will be gone by tonight, so no more Parler at all, which is, again, a little victory. But too little, too late. We let this stuff perpetuate and seep into society, into people's minds, and that's what happens. That's absolutely what happens. Is you let this build up, and then it becomes too little, too late. Too little, too late. But thankfully, it's at least something. And of course, Gina Carano, the hashtag Fire Gina Carano is trending again, and people are also defending her. And I haven't really gone in that hard on Gina Carano. I think it is a time where now we have to, because it's one thing to be like, well, I'm a Republican and I still completely disagree with you, and I don't have any respect that you could even, vote for that man this past November. But now, if you're defending things like storming the Capitol, which Gina Carano had done the other day, the backlash is completely warranted. She supported the riots. She supported circumventing the electoral process in this country. So she supported violence against one of the most sacred buildings in this country. There's no excuse for that. There's no excuse. She absolutely needs to be fired at this point. I don't care how popular she is. I don't care if she's going to help ratings with Mandalorian or these 52 other Star Wars spinoffs that Disney Plus is creating. It's at least 52. I think they might have gotten to 53 or 54 in the past week or so. I feel like they're just throwing it all against the wall and seeing what sticks. They did this years ago when they bought Lucasfilm, but I digress. That's it for Gina Carano. That's it. I don't care. She can have fans. I was going to say she can go on Parler. Can't go on Parler anymore. But that's enough. And actually, one thing I forgot to mention, Republicans are actually freaking out right now and saying Donald Trump has no way to communicate with the country because he was taken off Twitter. This is something, remember, you can go back. I talked about this years ago, and I still don't love it. Ted Cruz and AOC have been going at it on Twitter. I don't like it. I'm not a fan of this. This is not a way to communicate to people. You want to tweet some things, that's fine. I follow AOC. That's the only reason I know this, because I like to get news information on Twitter. But this isn't the platform to be arguing policy and politics and finger pointing and calling names and for people that we're supposed to respect and are supposed to keep our country running. So that in itself, Donald Trump not having a voice on Twitter, come on. The other thing is, if you're not familiar with the White House, he has a press room in his fucking house. It's in his fucking house. All he's got to do is say, hey, I'm going to have a press conference, and people show up, and he's able to talk to the whole country. But no, he's got to have this stupid Twitter platform. It's amazing. It's amazing and I'm going to call it like it is. It's amazing the fucking stupidity in this country. It's utterly amazing. Like I never, it's like we can't get any lower than this, and suddenly that Wednesday happens. Just absolutely ridiculous. And speaking of Wednesday, hashtag anatomy of capital attack, and you're going to find this under additional hashtags. I encourage you to actually go and look at this hashtag, or at least find articles relating to this, because as we were watching it unfold on Wednesday, it didn't seem nearly, watching it unfold live, it didn't seem nearly as crazy. I mean, it was crazy. Don't get me wrong. We're seeing people storm the Capitol and everything. But really, once you see the up-close video and really get the information, and you see that poor police officer being beaten to death, you really understand the severity of it. And I think everyone out there needs to understand the severity of this. You know, they were a bunch of idiots. You know, they really thought they were going to take over the government by doing that, building gallows outside the Capitol building and everything. But that's where you really see how bad it was, how scared people were, how people were running for their lives. And there's a particular instance that I'm really going to talk about as we move along here. Hashtag impeach and remove. Just for a moment, I want people to understand this. I really want people to understand this, because I didn't have full understanding of this. I heard this coming up on Wednesday. I was like, just wait it out. Wait it out. It's 2 weeks. Wait it out. But I really started to fully understand this. My feeble political mind. If he is impeached, he will not be able to run for public office ever again. So this whole 2024 running for it won't happen. He will not be allowed to do that. Additionally, he will lose his Secret Service detail after he is impeached and convicted. He will lose his $200,000 a year pension. And he will lose his. This is something I had I knew the presidents had lifetime Secret Service and $200,000 a year, salary for life, essentially pension. But did you know that ex-presidents get a $1 million a year travel budget? $1 million. That was utterly absurd to me. He should not have that. No president should have that. $1 million. And before you say it, you're going to say, well, no, they have to take Secret Service with them. Not $1 million. We don't need to be paying for people's vacations out of tax money, and we can't even give people money to live through this collapse of the economy right now, but we give presidents $1 million to travel around and go on vacation. We're not talking book tour stuff that they get this vacation budget yearly, $1 million. Take that shit away. No more. Take it away from everybody, to be honest, but the Orange Menace absolutely does not deserve any of those benefits. And most importantly, he won't be able to run for office because his cult is going to follow him. This cult of Trump is not done. The good thing is we now have some Republicans and people who vote Republican are realizing, okay, it's not funny anymore. It's too little too late, but he's at least lost a lot of support. However, that cult of Trump, it's not going away. It's not going away. And as far as the Capitol riots, oh, man. I mean, that's what we're calling it. It's a terrorist attack. I want to get that straight. Never in my life did I think I would ever see something like this. Ever. And I'm obviously old enough. I woke up the morning of September 11th, 2001, to my roommate staring at the television and not understanding what was going on and seeing that unfold. I was very well aware of the Oklahoma City bombing in the 90s. I believe that was 95. Nobody quote me on that exact year, but I was very well aware of that. I've seen lots of these things. Never in my life did I think I would see something like this. Now, obviously, the loss of life isn't the same. And here's the thing. People are like, well, that's terrorism. I don't know. By definition, those were terrorists that stormed the Capitol. And I don't want to hear this domestic terrorist shit. I'm so sick of the whole domestic terrorist thing. No, they're fucking terrorists. I don't care where they're from. Let's call them what they are. They're terrorists. They went in there wanting to kill people, wanting to circumvent the political process in this country for their own gain. Terrorists. Those are terrorists. They weren't very good at it, but they're terrorists. And I don't care who that angers. I'm at this point now. If you don't think they were terrorists, this podcast is not for you. It's just not. Don't waste your time listening to this podcast because we're never going to see eye to eye on anything. We're just not. Common sense tells me those were terrorists. The dictionary tells me those were terrorists. It's as simple as that. As simple as that. That's what it is. And I'm done with the whole domestic thing. And imagine if they were people of color. People have brought this up all week. And it's so obvious because we watched this during the summer when people of color were gassed for just standing. Rubber bullets, tear gas, all kinds of things. These white sons of bitches come storming into the Capitol, nothing. Nothing. And especially the video of the black officer, the black Capitol Police officer, just being charged at by a bunch of white, ignorant assholes. Most of them wearing Q shirts, Canon, they're these quunts. That's what I like to call them now. A friend of mine brought that one up on social media. I was like, oh, that's great, quunts. Not only that, but the anti-Semitism. There were so many shirts supporting the Holocaust. You could see them while this was unfolding on live television. Confederate flags in the Capitol building. That's what this is. If those were people of color, so many more people would have died. Guns would have been blazing. And I don't want to get into the semantics. There's so much more that's going to come out on this. Whether Capitol Police were assisting or not. I can't unpack that at this point. But I can tell you, common sense says that if those people storming the Capitol had a different skin color, it would have ended very differently. Very differently. And compare that to kneeling for the flag. I mentioned that briefly at the top of the podcast. I know so many people that got on me. Didn't want to be my friend anymore. Didn't want to have anything to do with me. Family, for fuck's sake. Relatives. You don't kneel for the flag. It's disrespectful. It's disrespectful to our country. Many of those people who took the time to tell me that that I hate this country, that I'm a terrible human, and to leave the country, silence. Silence from those same people right now. After people stormed the Capitol. Again, what is the difference? Colin Kaepernick's skin color. And what he was kneeling for. There's no excuses at this point. There just aren't. And those who supported this, anyone who supported this, you're responsible. You supported the hate and the lies. For years, you supported the hate and the lies. And then it's quiet now. Suddenly you want to clutch your pearls now? No. I've sat on this podcast and warned for years where this country was going because of this person that we put into power. There's no excuses at this point. You can't. And for me personally, I'm done. I'm done. I said, if you support these things, don't listen to podcasts. But I got to be honest, I do know some people that are Republicans and are Trump supporters. And for me personally, it's going to be a long time before I can even be near anybody who has supported this administration. I'm just not going to do it. My daughter's not going to be around them. I'm not going to be around them. It's going to be a very long time until I can do that. It's the same thing I said about COVID. Everyone traveling and just willy-nilly about COVID and stuff so that my daughter's stuck at home for 10 months. It's going to be a long time before I can even be around those people either. And it's the same thing. I mean, this is much worse. But it's the same thing. Same thing. The Holocaust shirts. That's what got me the most. I saw so many. And I have so many Jewish friends that it broke my heart to see that. The whole thing broke my heart. But to see that, like imagine being in this country, you've lived in this country your entire life and you see people supporting the Holocaust. And it's twofold for me because not only do I have a lot of Jewish friends, but people that don't know, yeah, my name's Sean O'Rourke. My mother's maiden name is Yule Toski. My daughter's name is Zofia or Zosha for a reason. And if you're not familiar with Germany and Poland and Hitler, you understand why I take that personally. Not only because the Holocaust was absolutely wrong, but because I had relatives, and not even very distant relatives, that were living in Poland at that time. All right, let's talk about some positive news for a second. Sweet Jesus. Oh. I knew it was going to be scorched earth. I know I'm pissing off a lot of people, and I don't even care. Just don't listen. Don't listen. I don't care anymore, because I'm not going to sit here and pretend that anything about this is normal, that anything's right with it. And I got my new Baby Yoda. Santa put a Baby Yoda in my stocking this year. Anyone watching the video, you can actually see him on there. That's a positive thing. Baby Yoda sitting in a Stormtrooper helmet. Anyway, the number one positive news for this particular episode in this particular week, and the first episode of 2021, is 10 days from now, hopefully sooner, but 10 days from now, the Orange Menace will no longer be our president. I think he is going to get impeached. But I would encourage you, and this is something I'm just learning about today, there is actually talk about the House bringing up the articles of impeachment like next week, and then the Senate sitting on it for like 3 months and then voting on it. And obviously he would already be out of office. But here's the positive thing, in getting that impeachment done, he can't run for office again. And that also frees up the Senate and our incoming president, Joe Biden, to actually implement his, and I'm feeble-minded politically, but the first 100 days is a thing that is a big thing for presidents. So that would be to enable him to kind of move his agenda along for the first 100 days, then get the impeachment conviction done, and he'll lose all his benefits. So that's the number one positive news of 2021, is we're 10 days away, regardless of this orange son of a bitch being gone. Just completely gone. I'm hoping he drops off the face of the earth. Who knows? Go down there in Florida. Maybe start your own country in Florida. I'm fine with that. Let me get my couple of relatives out of there first, but I'm okay with that. I don't care that I was born there. One other positive news I want to bring up, though, completely outside of politics and everything else, is Bianca Smith. Bianca Smith. If you haven't heard this name, remember this name, because even if you're not into sports, this is a great positive thing that's happened and a great step forward in general. She was actually hired by the Boston Red Sox, and she will be the first black woman to coach in professional baseball. She's going to coach in the minor leagues. The minor leagues is professional baseball. But now like I said, she's going to be the very first black woman to coach in the minor leagues, it's a fantastic step forward. It's true progress. And I always say this, I'm a big fan of Becky Hammond. And forgive me, Katie Nolan, I'm blanking on her last name, but with the San Francisco 49ers, female coaches, Becky Hammond with the San Antonio Spurs of the NBA. Women are just as capable as men of doing these things. And it's great that we're finally realizing that. So good on you, Boston Red Sox. Congratulations, Bianca Smith. And I hope to see more of this moving forward, because completely capable. And Becky Hammond has done a fantastic job there in the NBA. In fact, I know most of you are not familiar with NBA, but Greg Popovich, the head coach of the San Antonio Spurs, Becky Hammond is a assistant coach. He was kicked out of a game a couple weeks ago, because you can get thrown out of games in any sport, and it's usually managers and coaches. It's like, yeah, they purposefully get thrown out sometimes. He gets thrown out and he turns and he goes, "All right, Becky, you're in charge." Becky Hammond was the first female to be a head coach in the NBA, coach an actual game as the head coach. So that was pretty cool as well. All right, some COVID updates. Oh, it's just getting worse. We're not in good shape. I know all my friends out there in the UK, it's not looking good there either. You got a lockdown and that new, more contagious strain that was making its way through the UK. Of course, that same strain has also found its way here to Los Angeles. That strain is all over the country. It's just, we're only getting it. We got evidence in Los Angeles or no, not Los. They're saying it's likely around Los Angeles. They've confirmed one in Southern California. I believe it was closer to San Diego, and some in Colorado. It's all over the fucking place. It's not going away anytime soon. We're just in horrible shape. LA's not doing good. We're still on the stay-at-home order, and the hospitals are just getting taxed. In fact, if you watch the news, ambulances are getting turned away, and in fact, officials told ambulance companies that if they don't think a patient is going to survive, don't even bring them to the hospital, because the hospitals are so overwhelmed. And I think here's the important thing to unpack, because I know there are still people out there. There are people in my friend circles that are like, "Oh, it's just the flu," and still playing shows and doing all these things and just don't willy-nilly don't care. Traveling. Jesus Christ, I had so many fucking people I know traveling for Christmas. Thanks. My 4-year-old can't see her grandparents, but by all means, my 30-year-old friend's got to go. Jesus, I can't anymore with it. It's going to be a while before I'm able to hang out with those people. I mean, my little niece, who's my little big sister's daughter. She hadn't even met her grandparents yet. They're responsible. But here's the thing. Regardless of how you feel about COVID, is it a hoax and all this other stuff? It's not as serious as it sounds. We're at a point that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because fact is, and this is a fact, you can see it. It's there. ICUs are doubling up patients. They are doubling their capacity and they still can't get patients in. Regardless of that, stay home because if you go out and you get hurt, there's a chance you don't get into a fucking hospital. There's a good chance of that. You could die in an ambulance. So I don't care how you feel about COVID. I mean, I do care. But this is where we're at in Los Angeles. Stay home. Wear a mask. You don't need to be out doing things. People still go out and do you don't need to do that. Stay the fuck home. The hospitals can't handle it. That's just common sense. Regardless of how you feel about it, that is common sense. I will say on one positive note, the vaccines are rolling out. It's been slow here in California, but I've seen quite a few people that I know personally have gotten their first vaccine. And I've actually seen a couple people that have now gotten their second vaccine. Friends of mine that are healthcare workers have gotten their second vaccine. That is such a great sign. I'm really happy to see it. I'm certain that Punk in the Park is not going to happen in April, but maybe we'll get some Hella Mega in July if we can all get vaccinated at that point. It's the COVID exhaustion. It's not going away. But it's just common. If we could all just use common sense. It's all we need. Common sense. I'll tell you. All right, let's talk a little bit about mental health. I don't have anything real in-depth, but I want to do this. I'm going to make a point to do this more often, is bring up individual organizations. And I do this quite a bit, but I want to make a better habit of it in general. And it's organizations that do great work within the mental health realm. For those of you watching on the video feed right now, I am wearing my newest Punk Rock Saves Lives shirt. If you're not familiar with Punk Rock Saves Lives, I've mentioned them on the podcast before. They do a lot of great work. They are a nonprofit organization based out of Colorado, but they are really nationwide, really worldwide. They got a lot of support worldwide. I know a lot of my friends in the UK and other parts of Europe are very familiar with it and supporting the causes that they do. And it's not only nonprofit helping out with other nonprofits, but a big part of what they do is their mental health initiatives. In fact, they do a PMA Wednesdays thing where they bring people in. It's usually Tina and is one of them that's usually on there, and Rover Rushing, Tina Rushing, and then I know there's a couple other people, and I'm just blanking on their names. I know Rob and Tina because they are the founders and they run Punk Rock Saves Lives. But they do this every Wednesday. You know, obviously, they didn't do it this last Wednesday. I chuckle, but it was like, I remember I saw the post and they're like, we're not going to do it tonight, you guys. And I was like, yeah. And people could probably use it, but people probably just need it. I mean, my wife, she's been working from home. The owner of her company, her agency was like, yeah, we're not going to have any meetings the rest of the day. You could you could still work, but if you need to just take some time, all good too, because Wednesday was rough. I went out and lifted weights on Wednesday. And this goes to mental health because that's been helping my mental health a lot. I was lifting some weights in my backyard, and I turned on the news, and I was getting a little pumped, and I was yelling at the TV, because they were like, "Oh, I don't know what we should call them," and I was like, "You call them what they are, terrorists," you know. And that actually helped my mental health a little bit, but I still just, like I said, I was watching CNET at midnight on my phone through Twitter because I was like, confirm, let's get through this. They get to Pennsylvania, I was just like, we gotta do this now. All right, I guess I'm just going to be up till 1 a.m. watching C-SPAN. It was crazy. I'm not a political... I don't never watch C-SPAN. Maybe a clip that's really funny that someone shared. I'm watching C-SPAN at midnight on a Wednesday, for the love of God. But back to Punk Rock Saves Lives. Follow on Facebook. It is a great resource. Not only that PMA Wednesdays, but just overall. And you could follow Punk Rock Saves Lives, but you'll notice there's also a Punk Rock Saves Lives like mental health initiative, or you'll see it. It should connect directly from Punk Rock Saves Lives, and you'll see this logo similar to my T-shirt here. I'm loving my T-shirt. I picked up some merch from them back in December. Finally, I've been meaning to do it. And I was like, I'm always funny. I'm like, oh, let me get a T-shirt. Let's get a hat, a patch, just throwing stuff in the cart, and then it arrives. I'm like, oh yeah, I ordered all this stuff. That is my life when it comes to band merch and like company merch that I really like Punk Rock Saves Lives. But outside of those Wednesday things, it is a great community within Punk Rock Saves Lives. And you'll see people post things, people post tips, people asking for help, whatever it might be. It's a great resource. Shout out to Punk Rock Saves Lives. I'm a huge fan, and we're going to continue to promote them. But that would be my number one recommendation for you from the mental health realm. And beyond that, just take care of yourselves right now. It's been a hell of a week, man. It's been a hell of a week, and we're probably gonna have some more craziness over the next week or so. So limit your doom scrolling, that's for sure, and limit the news. Be informed. But when it starts to take attacks on your mental health, that's when you know it's time to take a break from the doom scrolling or whatever else you're doing. All right, parenting. I don't have a ton on this, but this is something that's been a little bit of a challenge for me recently, having a 4-year-old at home. And I've been doing a little bit of research, and I would encourage you, if this is something that's come up with you, is kind of finding the best way that kids learn. I'm learning that my kid is very visual and vocal. She doesn't like to write as much letters, but she loves to try to read letters or visually see things and count in her head, those kind of things. And it's been a bit of a struggle because we're really trying to instill these things, in my 4-year-old. And it's always going to be frustrating. You're always going to have frustrations with a toddler, no matter what you do. But I think the key here, and something that I am just learning, and I'm sure a lot of people out there know it, but if you're running into the same struggles as me, there are resources out there. There's actually, kids learn in different ways. They really do. And that's something I'm navigating right now. And if you have a toddler or older at home, it's a constant, I don't want to say a constant struggle, but it's a moving target of kind of how kids learn and their best way of getting information and retaining information. And the funny thing is I'm learning that my daughter is a little more like me. That's very much how I am. I am a visual, which is probably why I went to film school. I'm not a sit here and read or write. I mean, I love reading, don't get me wrong, but I'm not a research here kind of guy. I'm more of a in front of me, show me things, picture, whatever it might be. So that's the struggle. That is a struggle. But I'm finding resources, and if you're struggling with this as well, plenty of resources out there for you. So keep that in mind, because every kid's different. I think it's that, but you got it as a parent, at least for me, and I think it's the same way for a lot of parents. You got to kind of remind yourself as you go along, okay, no, this thing. Every child is different, and especially don't compare your kids to other kids. Which is funny because I have friends' kids that are about the same age and they excel in other things, quicker than my daughter does. But then I haven't met any of my friends' kids that are about my daughter's age that talk as much as her. So get ready for Go Tell It to the Wall Jr. featuring Zofia. She's already better at this than me. There's a picture right in front of me. Nobody sees it on the video feed because I keep it in front of me. There's two of them. She's wearing headphones in both, but there's one where she literally took over my seat as I was preparing to go into the studio for and that was pre-Common Sense, pre-pandemic Common Sense Sundays. That was just the old Thursday episodes. So you've been warned. You're probably only a few years away from another loudmouthed O'Rourke being on a podcast here. Picking up the family mantle. All right, entertainment news. I've got a few things I just want to go through here. Man, R.I.P., rest in power to Tommy Lasorda, Los Angeles legend. If you're not familiar with Tommy Lasorda, which you probably are, because even if you're not a sports fan, he was the manager of the Dodgers in the 70s and 80s. And even beyond that, was just such a great ambassador for the sport. You could, sometimes, and regardless of what it is, whether it's sports or a certain industry, or you see people in the spotlight, and you can tell when they have a passion for what they do. And Tommy Lasorda was one of those people. Now, fortunately, he was 93 years old, so he lived a heck of a life. I mean, it's very sad, but it's also, he was probably reaching the end of his time, and he had accomplished so much, and he's never going to be forgotten. I've become a little bit of a Dodgers fan. because I've lived in Los Angeles longer than anywhere else. But even as a kid and not being a Dodgers fan and living in San Diego, you had this respect for Tommy Lasorda. He was just this mountain of a man, not because he was a large individual, but just his personality was so big, so big. So we've absolutely lost a legend here in baseball, in this country, in baseball, but definitely here in Los Angeles. And I know there were a lot of tears shed the other day, but he lived a great life. So I think, as sad as it is, we also have to learn to celebrate these things when someone has truly lived a full life. Radio Disney, rest in peace to Radio Disney. We've mentioned this before. I knew this was coming years ago. They officially went dark earlier than they had announced. So Radio Disney is now gone. Not going to find it anywhere. Radio Disney Latin America still exists, and Radio Disney Russia still exists. I only laugh because it's like, you're like, well, no, Latin America, and it's like South America, but then it's like Russia. Like, we got a big demand for Radio Disney, and okay, cool. I mean, now there is a lot of music fandom in Russia. I know, like, specific to certain things. I know the band my brother plays in has a huge following in Russia. I remember when he told me that, he's like, yeah, I was like, you're going to Russia? It's like, yeah, no, they love us there. I'm like, all right. That was like the biggest venue they played on the last tour. Like, cool. I mean, I don't mean that like nothing. To an extent, nothing against Russia. But it's just funny when you hear, like, you get through all these other countries and Russia. Like, all right, Radio Disney Russia. A new Blink album is coming out in 2021, according to Travis Barker. I still got some love for Blink 182. We could probably have a break from some albums here, Mark. You're averaging like 2 good tracks an album on the past couple albums. And, like, do you? They're the hometown hero. I mean, the first 3 albums are always going to be very important to me. Oh my gosh, Cheshire Cat. I was blanking. Cheshire Cat was really one of my first not my first, but one of the first forays into kind of local punk music. Dude Ranch, still possibly my favorite Blink-182 album. And then Enema, I mean, I can't even really get into the visceral relationship I have with Enema, just because of the time of my life and really friends that I have because of Enema and because of Blink-182. But that's coming out next year, according to Travis Barker. He's going to take some time away from making terrible punk music with that blonde dude, Machine Gun Kelly. Is that? Yeah, Machine Gun. That shit's horrible. I always say, listen to whatever you want, but I tried that. I was like, fine, I'll listen to this oh God, it was bad. It was bad. I'd rather listen to some good Charlotte. That's how bad it was. I was just like, whoa, no. Go back to what you were doing before, please. And I don't understand what Travis is doing with that dude. I mean, I think Travis just plays drums for it. He's like, oh yeah, you need some. Here you go. Travis is on like 50 different bands. TV production here in Los Angeles, because of the COVID surge, most TV production has shut down. And this isn't even just speaking to all my friends that work in television and film production. If you're wondering why you're not seeing a lot of episodes from your shows and you live in the middle of the country, that's why. A lot of things are shot here in Los Angeles and unable to shoot them right now. It's going to come back. I mean, vaccinations are coming and everything else. It's just a matter of time, and it was probably smart to shut these things down. Microsoft has an announcement coming soon. This is actually, even if you're not a Microsoft person, this is important to you and as a fan of Go Tell It to the Wall, a common sensor and a wall fan. We are bringing in a new CPU to the studio. I mentioned this in one of the episodes at the end of last year. This is actually going to give us the ability to go live once again. I know there's a lot of people out there that don't care about the live stream. They just listen. But there are a lot of people that care about the live stream. And it's not going to affect you. If you don't watch the live stream, it literally doesn't affect you. But for those of you that love the live stream, I love the live stream. I love the interaction. We just haven't been able to do it because we need some new equipment to really do it the proper way. So we're bringing a new CPU to the studio. The thing is, we're waiting on this Microsoft announcement because they have some new hardware coming out. And as you know, if you've listened to the podcast for a long time, I am a Microsoft guy. This is recorded on a Microsoft machine. And the problem is I'm dealing with a Pro 3, and they're about to announce the Pro 8. But on that note, highly recommend the Surface line. I've had this thing for almost 6 years, and it still serves me well. The only problems I'm having now is when it comes to live streaming, because that takes a lot of computing power, and so I'm gonna up that quite a bit. It's just hopefully it's a matter of like a month or two, Gotta wait for this announcement and see where we're going, which direction, and as far as new gear. But that is coming very, very soon. And if you're a Microsoft person, look forward to that announcement. They don't make it as flashy as like Google and Apple and stuff, but look forward to that announcement. There's new gear coming out. All right, and one last thing I'll leave you with is this PlayStation 5 craziness, the PS5. I don't get it. I do get it because there's a huge demand for it, but I really don't get it. Everyone's going crazy trying to find PlayStation 5s, and they're like, oh my God, where's my PlayStation 5? And well, that's come to a head because there's a company called Super 5. The E in Super is actually a 3. Kids these days. Super 5, which is apparently an electronics company, they created a custom black PS5. I guess the PlayStation 5 is like white, and this, I'm a little bit familiar because I did have a PlayStation, oh my God, 2 or 3, I think 3. I had that slimline black one, and so I think they made these, they're supposed to look closer to that, and they're black, and they limited edition 300 of them. Well, apparently the company did, like on their website, pre-order or something, and sold out like that, 300 of them, because there's such a high demand. People at the company started getting death threats. Death threats over a fucking game system. Like, is it life and death? Life and death. Are you that bored? I realize a lot of people are stuck at home, but are you that bored? Like, you'll be able to get one eventually. It's fine. Nobody needs to die because you couldn't get your PlayStation 5. That's the world we live in. No common sense. Holy shit, common sense doesn't always prevail. That's really amazing. I like death threats. Death threats. This is coming from someone who's gotten death threats just for yelling at a wall. Death threats over a video game. I don't get it. I know video gaming is a big thing. I always debate getting into it. I have a NES Classic. I like to play some Zelda on there once in a while. I think my wife and I are like a year away from getting one of these the Nintendo Switch, just for fun, you know. So I get it, but I don't. It's such a big culture, and it's fine if that's your hobby. Like, I'm not one to talk. Normally when we're not in a pandemic, I go and get sweaty and run around a pit with a bunch of strangers, and not all strangers, but strangers and people I know, and scream at the top of my lungs, and that's my hobby. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but nothing's life and death. No hobby is life and death. Not like that. It could be life and death if you like skydive, and I'm not saying, I know that's very rare, but if you skydive, and you are risking your life a little bit, but we shouldn't be risking our lives when it comes to video games. Just seems silly to me. All right. On that note, wall fans, common sensors, podcast consumers, that's going to do it for episode 31, our very first episode of 2021. Welcome back. I'm excited to be back. As you can tell, I couldn't shut up this week, and hopefully better things on the horizon. Vaccines, orange people leaving the White House, all kinds of great things. New music. Not necessarily that Blake, but other new music coming. All good things coming in 2021. And most importantly for me, wall fans, common sensors, growth. Growth for Go Tell It to the Wall, growth for my family, growth for me personally. Growth. That's what I'm looking forward to. All right. We will be back next week. Same wall place, same wall time with episode 32. This has been episode 31 of Common Sense Sundays with Go Tell It to the Wall. I am, of course, your favorite podcast host, the one and only Sean O'Rourke. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Go Tell It to the Wall. YouTube, head over there, search Go Tell It to the Wall, subscribe to our channel. My own personal Instagram account, which is @SoCalSean. And, of course, most importantly, would be SeanO'RourkeLive.com. Until next week, wall fans, remember, no matter what you do, no matter who you're with, no matter where you go, no matter why you are doing it, always use common sense.